Welcome to What's Trending, your go-to podcast for staying informed about what's trending in the ever-evolving landscape of Westchester and beyond. We are your hosts, Amanda DePalma, Senior Vice President of Events and Development, and Dr. Marsha Gordon, President and CEO of the Business Council of Westchester.
On today's episode, we're exploring what's trending in the different cycles of real estate: buying, holding, and selling. We have three incredible real estate experts here with us: Mackenzie Forsberg, COO and co-founder of Genesis Realty Group; Sarah Jones-Maturo, president of RM Friedland; and Heidi Winslow, partner of DelBello, Donnellan, Weingarten, and Wiederkehr, LLP.
What's Trending is sponsored by Thompson & Bender. Thank you for the support of the BCW Podcast Network. Looking for unparalleled success in PR and marketing? Look no further than Thompson & Bender, the leader in strategic communications. With over 30 years of expertise, they've mastered everything from PR and advertising to social media and event marketing, ensuring their clients' success. Recognized with awards like the Business Council of Westchester Hall of Fame, City and State Power 100, and voted Best in Westchester for advertising, public relations, and social media by 914 Inc., their track record speaks for itself. Join the ranks of clients from Fortune 500 corporations, small businesses, educational and healthcare institutions, and many more who've benefited from their innovative strategies. Trust Thompson & Bender to elevate your brand to new heights.
Welcome, everyone. So, Mackenzie, Sarah, and Heidi, please tell us about yourself and your business.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mackenzie Forsberg. I'm the COO and co-founder of Genesis Realty Group. I've been in the multifamily commercial real estate space for going on 24 years, and my company is a full-service multifamily investment and property management company with about 5,000 apartments ranging from the tri-state area in New York City all the way through the Hudson Valley and Capital Region.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me. My name is Sarah Jones-Maturo. I'm the president of RM Friedland. We are the largest commercial real estate brokerage company headquartered in Westchester, specializing in all asset types, including industrial, office, retail, multifamily, and we also have a real estate consulting business, which I spearhead.
Great.
And I'm Heidi Winslow. I'm a partner with DelBello, Donnellan, Weingarten, and Wiederkehr, focusing on their commercial real estate transactional department. I represent a large array of developers, holders, tenants, landlords, construction companies. You name it, they come in and out of our doors.
That's great. This is a lot of things in one podcast. So we're going to cover a lot today. Let's start with development. Heidi, what types of development are trending now, and how are these developments different than what might have been trending a decade ago?
So the largest development class that we're seeing right now is really focused on residential rental development. These projects have a little bit of varying components with retail on the bottom. They're amenity retail primarily, but residential rental is still quite in the forefront of development. It's a little different today than it used to be. They're focusing much more on the importance of open space. So, for example, Hamilton Green just opened up their first phase in White Plains. They have a publicly accessible plaza that is kind of the cornerstone of the development for not only the residents.
Very beautiful, that Hamilton Green. We can't wait to visit there.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
The architecture, the design, it's amazing. And then if you think about the future, the Galleria, which is now in the approvals process, the concept there is that they will have a quarter-mile long publicly accessible plaza area with every kind of amenity retail, fitness centers, grocers, restaurants that you can imagine, which actually leads into the second kind of new component that we're seeing a whole lot of, and that's a focus on activating the street front and having much more of a community focus in terms of development. So, for instance, the Galleria, the concept there that is under advisement and under consideration would have a food hall with chef-driven restaurants and local food concepts, which would open out into an outdoor event space that would have art exhibitions, music, holiday traditions, environmental showcases. So the developers are really looking at the community around them and trying to develop in a way that fosters that community.
I think in all of these developers, Heidi Winslow, we are seeing cities being transformed. Westchester cities being transformed, redeveloped. How are developers attracting new tenants to these spaces? We've watched this for a long time at the Business Council of Westchester.
Every development seems to come up with new and better amenities. I mean, obviously, many of these have, your pools, your fitness centers, your event space, your meeting rooms. The Rose Associates building has simulated golf. Hamilton Green Phase 1 has an indoor pool, not just an outdoor pool. One Clinton Park in New Rochelle, which is an RXR development, has a speakeasy that when it's not open for business as a speakeasy converts into office and meeting space. So it's amazing what they're thinking of.
Gray Star's project in White Plains has like 50,000 square foot amenity center.
That's crazy.
Don't they?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's insane.
And there's a lot of co-working spaces. I was in one building in New Rochelle that had not only the rooftop pool, but also barbecues and just lots of ways for people to get together.
Yep, fire pits, roasting marshmallows.
Yeah, City Square.
You really said it earlier. It's really about a transformation now. It's not just the development of it. It's a complete transformation of what these projects are. Heidi, sustainability. How is sustainability factoring in on new development?
That's a great question. It's factoring in a very, very big way. Many of my developments are at least LEED Silver in their operational aspirations. Recently, there is a project underway to get new custom-built offices for the New York State Power Authority. And they are actually going to meet LEED Gold requirements for sustainability, and they are including geothermal, they are including solar, and they're including something called smart glass, which actually the tinting of the glass changes as the outside conditions are changing.
I've read about that.
And it's the energy efficiency aspects of this particular glass is just mind-blowing.
So apart from housing, what are the types of developments are gaining traction?
In the biomedical and life science space, we're seeing great expansions.
Really? That's great to hear. Well, Regeneron we know about.
Right. So Regeneron, they're in the middle of a 1 million square foot expansion of their laboratory and office space in Greenberg. That expansion is set to have about 1,000 new jobs for Westchester County. Minimum salaries of $150,000. It's
so exciting. And just to be clear, it's not all scientific jobs.
Correct. I work closely with their facilities team, where they're expanding and actually expanding their footprint. They have administrative positions. They have across the board. So.
They're an amazing company. We are so fortunate to have them here in Westchester, and we are honoring them at our Hall of Fame this year.
You certainly are.
Yes. Yes.
In keeping with this whole idea of transformation, adaptive reuse is really a trending topic around the country and specifically here in Westchester County. What have you seen in terms of adaptive reuse of existing assets?
Sure. So for a while, we were seeing changes of use. So office would become medical office in many instances. Now we're seeing more of a complete adaptive reuse. So the Berkeley College building in White Plains, that is set to be redeveloped as a commercial. As an affordable development, including affordable condominiums. And,
that's great.
And new financing options have become available to make that possible. With and Sarah can speak more to this in just a second, but one of the challenges of adaptive reuse is, a lot of times the center of the building is wasted space for a residential use. So in this particular project, they're essentially cutting a hole in the middle of the building for a courtyard to increase the
My
light.
goodness, that's fabulous.
That's great.
And adding a floor to it to maintain the same FAR, but it's really very visionary.
Yeah, they were very fortunate in terms of the existing infrastructure there. We were very happy to be part of that transaction, and one of the buildings was actually former dormitories, so it was a little bit less of a heavy lift on the rehab, but very cool project and much needed for White Plains. Affordable condos. I think it's tremendous.
It's really great because that's really a way to have people begin to gain equity and gain wealth, and very, 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 very important.
So
Many people think that affordability is only rental housing, and it's important for us as an industry to support projects that involve home ownership, especially for first-time home buyers.
Absolutely, Mackenzie, yes.
I want to shift to leasing for a minute. Sarah, what is the state of the office market right now? Have we reached pre-pandemic occupancy levels?
So just to kind of level set before I answer that question, the office market in Westchester County is trends sort of, not in a healthy way. So equilibrium, where it's neither a tenant nor a landlord's market for availability rate is considered 10%, and Westchester County is more towards like 20% typically. Pre-pandemic, it was hovering at around 17 to 18%, and now it's just over 20%. So unfortunately, no, it has not, is the short answer. But the good news...
You're always going to get the real answer on what's trending at the BCW Podcast Network.
But the good news, though, is that leasing activity is trending more to where it was in 2018-19 pre-pandemic, and tenants are signing longer-term deals. They're more confident in their footprint moving forward. So a little bit of positivity there at the end.
Well, that is really good to know. So have you seen companies relocating from New York City to Westchester for a shorter commute?
Unfortunately, the answer to that is also sort of no. But there were a few actually 10 to 15,000 square foot tenants that did relocate. One of them actually relocated to the building we're sitting in, 800 Westchester, which was Chopped. The salad concept actually
they have
relocated.
Really great salads.
Yeah, they
too.
do. They relocated their headquarters here from the city actually during the pandemic. But
I'm relocating.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm relocating.
There we go.
Oh, really? That's great.
And we did see some sort of hub and spoke stuff where the companies kept their main location in New York City, but then they opened small satellite offices here during the pandemic. So that was positive.
Well, now that you brought up Chopped, I know where we're all going after we're done with this episode. Speaking of these changes, what themes are emerging in the office market that you can see?
Flight to quality is a big one. I think everyone has heard of that trend. It's essentially tenants are taking advantage of sort of a down market and relocating from C and B buildings to A buildings that are highly amenitized to get their employees back to the office. Financial institutions and corporate giants are leading the way in terms of a full return to office push. That's JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, Citi, Amazon. They're all requiring their people in office 5 days. And hybrid is still in favor for some, but what we've seen is that unlike 2 years ago, very few people are doing full remote. It's hybrid or it's you're back in. So that's good news for the office market.
And what about retail leasing and industrial leasing trends?
Retail leasing is kind of exciting right now in Westchester. We've seen a resurgence of the experiential tenant. So like trampoline parks, pickleball, fun stuff, very active. The activity also in the what they call the 5 Fs. So that's fun, family, fashion discounters, fitness, and food. Has also been very active. So, groups like Target, TJX, they're all fashion discounters. They're very active in the market. They're expanding. They're looking for new concepts like HomeSense is part of the TJX brands that's active in Westchester. Fitness, you've got a lot of boutique fitness that is active again, like Orange Theory. And on the industrial side, I think the exciting thing is spec construction. So, building a building without a tenant in place. Robert Martin's doing it at 16 Skyline. You also have the VTO Group doing it in Stamford, just across the Westchester border at 120 Hamilton. On the industrial side, it's the opposite of the office market. There continues to be an interesting relationship between supply and demand. The availability rate is sub 6%, so drastically different from office.
So we've covered development, we've covered leasing. Mackenzie, let's dive into the sales market a little bit. How is sales volume trending compared to past years when interest rates were lower?
I focus predominantly in multifamily, which leads the commercial real estate market in terms of transaction volume. So we've seen a substantial decline since 2021, 2022. But I will say there, on a positive note, there has been an uptick at the end of 2024, just numbers wise. For some perspective, in 2022, multifamily transaction volume in Westchester County alone was at 1.1 billion. And the market reports I was reviewing RM Friedland's, they're phenomenal. And we saw 2024 end with just 378 million. Even though it's an industry leader in transactions, the difference between 1.1 billion and 378 million is quite a number.
And by the way, I'll just put in a little plug here that RM Friedland's reports can be found on the Business Council of Westchester's Data Exchange.
Thank you both for the plug.
Yes.
I'll pay you for that
And
later.
we're asked this a lot. It's not just interest rate and that factor of financing. The main reason what started all of this was the banking collapse, the unprecedented banking collapse in 2023. We saw the complete industry overhaul where, starting with Silicon Valley Bank and trickling down to the main lenders, not just here in New York, but nationwide, banks like Signature Bank and First Republic. And it damn near eradicated a bank like New York Community Bank, which you would think is too big to fail. These banks, they started failing. So at that time, what's one of the major factors here is that the FDIC started to tighten up its regulations and really start looking deeper and more closely into not only who they're lending money to, but what type of assets. And there are a lot of boxes to check. And even the regional banks that made it through the banking collapse found it harder to provide loans for investors. And just myself alone, speaking from experience, at the end of 2021, for perspective, we did a deal, 43 refinances, over 200 million in loans, and it took me about 6 to 8 weeks with one of these banks that collapsed. Last year, one of my clients, were trying to help them buy a 9-unit in Woodlawn. It took about 6 to 8 months.
Wow.
That is a trend. That is really something to talk about. What are some of the outside trends that are impacting trends in CRE sales?
This is kind of a twofold here. The biggest outside trend that impacts transactions, especially the multifamily space, is valuation. Valuation is part of this kind of perfect storm that went hand in hand with the bank collapse and interest rates that, we're trying to reset. And you see some of the market resetting now, so that is a positive thing. But, if you want to ask what has trended over the past few years and why we're here where we are, valuation is the second biggest factor. And, simply put, back of the napkin numbers, if you're looking to invest, you're looking at the NOI, you're looking at what your income is and what it could be versus what your expenses are and what they could be. And you want to make the most net operating income, and that will determine what you sell a property for and what you buy a property for, depending on what side of the table you're sitting on. Valuations got caught in this perfect storm on the income side, kind of in this political mess that we're in right now, where you have legislators who want to preserve affordable housing and the affordability crisis is on everyone's tongues. And it kind of bifurcated the real estate industry as a whole, where you have clients like Heidi's, where the sky's the limit on a new development. New developers of housing, they have unlimited rents and unlimited tax credits that they have available as resources to help offset any kind of, rent regulation. But if you own pre-existing housing, there's sort of this push to cap rents to preserve affordability. And it's got great intentions, but from a community perspective and from a commercial real estate valuation perspective, it kind of hurts everyone. And I won't go into too much detail. I think that's kind of for another podcast. But if you're looking to cap rents, it's at the expense of quality and safety. So you have these buyers that are hesitant to invest. And that's why the valuations have been all over the place, because if, you see there was a Rent Act in 2019 that capped rents for rent regulated properties under ETPA, the Emergency Tenant Protection Act. And then again, here, what you hear on everyone's tongue is good cause eviction, which it's kind of a misnomer because of course nobody should be evicted without good cause. But what's tied into that are rent caps and disincentivization of an owner to reinvest in their own property to preserve quality and safety. So that's really on the income side, which has been really disrupted. And on the expense side, it's basic math. Since COVID, the big ticket items, maintenance costs and supplies and labor have gone up at least by 40%. And the insurance industry, especially here in New York, it's a very litigious society as compared with the rest of the country, and a lot of flooding and climate change. You see what's happening in LA with the wildfires. The insurance costs for any asset class have gone up, especially in the multifamily space, by near 80%. So
Mackenzie,
between the financing and all of this, the valuations have gone all over the place.
So you mentioned earlier on, you had mentioned investors. Which asset class is attracting the most investor interest in Westchester, and where do you see these trends heading in the future?
So, I just painted a picture that's it's a little wild about the multifamily space, but, again, there has been an uptick and it still continues to be the leader in the asset class. As long as you know what you're doing, you know how to really underwrite a deal on the income and expense side, which comes with professional management services, which, I think that's really one of the hottest trends and what's going to keep this market viable. The asset class that's still the strongest is multifamily. The market reports show that last year, again, transactions were at 378 million as compared with the other asset classes were all under 200 million, especially office, which was even under 40 million. So it continues to be the leader. And I think the big winners in the multifamily space are the nonprofit sector, new development, and even recent developments, maybe not new developments, but that still have longevity in their tax credits to help offset some of their expenses.
Absolutely fascinating insights. Fascinating. You are all amazing. You've given us a sense of the real estate market in Westchester County and the region. Sarah, Heidi, Mackenzie, would you like to share any final thoughts?
Well, I guess on the development side, everyone's waiting to see what happens with the new administration. If tariffs are imposed, for instance, we get a huge amount of our lumber from Canada, steel from China. I think all of the developers want to see what's about to happen, to see what, the costs, where the costs will go.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sarah, I know at RM Friedland, you did a great report on the impact of all of this development. And I think there are some surprising findings in that report as well.
There were, definitely. I think from a leasing perspective, I'm very optimistic about the next few years. I think, office continues to improve. Industrial has been strong, and I think will continue to be strong. And retail really has, I think picked up as well. So I think it's positive.
Mackenzie?
Same. I think it could be trending in a positive direction for the multifamily space. The two factors are for current buyers and sellers to engage with consultants and professional investment and management services to streamline their efficiencies and NOI, and also on the legislative end, especially with the BCW and other trade organizations, working with legislators on a local level to incentivize current property owners who own affordable housing, to incentivize them to reinvest in their housing stock that's naturally occurring.
Lastly, any new exciting initiatives at each of your respective companies that you want to share? And Mackenzie, you said you were relocating. That sounds like an exciting initiative.
We're based in the Bronx, and we are opening an office in Dobbs Ferry. We've been opening this office for a while, but we ended up buying the property up the block, and now we're moving there. So we are focusing on continuing our property management, but, as I just spoke about earlier, consulting, I think, is really, there's a need for people. The mom and pop shops these days, they can't afford to stay in business and stay viable. But with the help of professional consulting and management services, it's much easier to navigate and much more profitable.
Great. Well, we want to thank you all for joining us today on What's Trending on the BCW Podcast Network. It's been an honor for Amanda DePalma and myself, Marsha Gordon, to have Heidi Winslow and Sarah Jones-Maturo and Mackenzie Forsberg on as our guests. This has been such a valuable and insightful conversation.
Thank you again all for being here, and thank you again to our sponsor, Thompson & Bender. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. That was really fun.
Be sure to check out the BCW Podcast Network's expansive lineup of shows: Leadership Unleashed, Advocacy Unplugged, Member Spotlight, WIN, the Innovation Roundtable, and Talent Trailblazers. Stay tuned for our next episode of What's Trending, premiering next month. The Business Council of Westchester is the county's largest business membership organization focusing on economic development and advocacy. With over 1,100 members, it is our mission to work for the profitability of our members and prosperity of the Westchester community. To learn more about the Business Council of Westchester, please go to thebcw.org.